Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to TNP Finance, where we make long and short-term investing simple. Today we're going to take a look at a deep dive of the NASDAQ, and I'm going to talk about where I can expect it to go within the long and short term, and what we can expect whether you are a bull or a bear. So we will hop into that within a couple minutes, but first I want to talk about a couple stocks here that I've been looking out for, just because that will take the shortest amount of time, so we'll just kind of get this out the way to start. So without further ado, I'm going to want to take a look at AMD. On Friday over here, before the market closed for the weekend, I saw that AMD was having this very severe pullback. Now, what I was looking at, if we zoom out a little bit further, we can see that that AMD has had this massive bull move, moved up about 140% within about 4 or 5 months. So when we do get a pullback like 20% from here to here, that's to be expected, you know, that's healthy. And especially when it's 20% on the dot, which it really was. That goes to show that that's pretty much just market manipulation, and that we can expect for it to reject, especially off of $150 a share, which is a perfect psychological level. So that being said, very, very precise and very calculated with the trades here. Now, what I saw here was that we were starting to make higher highs, we were getting tighter into this wedge, and then one day we absolutely broke out and we moved up 3.49%. So as soon as we did that, I waited for a rejection to come back down, and then as soon as we start to get that and I saw that the market was starting to bottom out, that's when I placed my trade. Now, my original trade was for a great risk reward ratio, 10.78, absolutely fantastic, 8% to the upside, as I was trying to take price at 177, which was where our previous resistance line was listed above. But that's not what ended up happening. Instead, if you were an investor on the TNP Discord community, you would have woken up to this trade, where we ended up taking profit all the way up from $177 to $226. 37.83% within about 30 minutes of the market being open. Now, I want to remind you, this trade was placed on Friday before the market closed, right before it closed. And then as soon as 9:30 hit, the market opened, we cashed out for 38%. Now, this trade here, 49 risk to reward ratio, nearly 50 risk to reward ratio, absolutely insane. That being said, we ended up, again, we are leverage traders within the Discord, so that 38% really ends up being something like 111.8% within AMD. So that being said, massive wins here. We were making thousands and thousands of dollars within the Discord community. So if you are interested in learning all these trades that we take, and you want to be a unbiased trader like myself that is beating the market by about actually probably as of today as we speak, we're probably beating it by over 1,000%, and I will show the trades and the charts that we've been doing here. Yeah, if you want to join in on that, come take a look at that link in my description, wap.com/tnp-finance, because we are absolutely abusing and putting this market to work. So that being said, come take a look at that. But I will give you some more trades that I will be looking out for when it comes to the NASDAQ, or stocks within the NASDAQ. The first one being Chipotle, CMG. It has been absolutely flying in the past decade here. Let's just take a look all the way back to 2018. You're sitting at just, as a penny stock, $6 a share. We ended up going all the way up to about $70 a share. We've gotten a very strong pullback from our all-time high. This pullback is looking like, from top to bottom, is looking like 44%. That being said, when we see that Chipotle is still a very unflawed company, still very good earnings, as we can see in the past here. We haven't had one single earnings miss since we've had this drop off. I say, hey, this is too cheap, especially if we get a break above our resistance level here. That's when I buy in. So we ended up buying in within the Discord community, and within just a couple days, we're still up about 4% before our 3 times leverage. But right now, if you are an investor getting into it a little bit later, it's still not a really big problem, because I am still very confident that just because we moved up 3 and nearly 4% within 2 days, Chipotle has still a lot of movement to be seen. The average analyst rating for Chipotle is sitting about at $62 a share, which is still about 49% up from where we are right now. So there's still time to get in. 7 risk to reward ratio for this trade, a little bit over. So to me, again, this is a no-brainer trade. So I will be looking very forward to be cashing out for this trade in the future. But that's pretty much it, what I'm looking for when it comes to Chipotle. One other stock trade that I will tell you about is none other than Berkshire Hathaway. This is my baby over here. Berkshire Hathaway has been absolutely flying up for the past, well, forever, let me just say, forever, we've had massive moves within Berkshire Hathaway. It's stronger than the S&P 500, stronger than the NASDAQ 100. So when I see that we have a pullback that's quite substantial of 13%, that's what I'm expecting for it to reject and for us to make new all-time highs as it normally does. Right now for Berkshire Hathaway, we do have this falling resistance line here, and this is the last leg of support when it comes to the bears. If they can't hold this, it is a bull market without a doubt. So we can see here, we have this low here, a new higher high, a higher low, and then it's soon to be higher high. Right now, if you are waiting to place a trade, I'd say place that trade not just while we're over our resistance line here, but while we're over $500.23, just to make sure, you know, and you're still going to get a great restored ratio of hopefully about 10. That's if you do take profit at 560, which I think is very possible. That is a Fibonacci ratio level. It is also a very nice number on the chart. So again, pretty conservative when it comes to take profit for Berkshire Hathaway for a new all-time high. But that's what I'm looking at there. Again, a great restored ratio, 11.7% to be taken up. But it's actually one of the most undervalued stocks within the NASDAQ top 20 stocks as well. So without doubt, that is going to be a great trade to be taken. But again, if you are interested in learning all these trades and how to get into the market with very high precision, again, TMP Finance would be in the market by 1,000%. Or something like that. I don't know off the top of my head, but a lot of money, I'm going to say. Come take a look at that link in my description. You're going to get all the trades to take in real time, take profit, stop loss, percentage risk allocation, and also ask me any question that you could possibly need to ask. But I want to take a look at the NASDAQ now. The NASDAQ has been flying up. We're probably about 53% away from where we bottomed out in 2025, but April 2025. So just within a couple months here, massive moves to the upside, without a doubt. This is definitely a bull trend, and I don't think anybody's going to tell you otherwise. Very, very strong performance within the NASDAQ here. That being said, I am expecting in the short term to continue moving up higher. That should come with no surprise, as we have made a new all-time high. We're above all of our supports. We've been able to have this massive engulfing candle compared to yesterday's or Friday's scare out. And again, I want to mention to you that September is typically a very bearish month within the market. On average, it does about negative 1.5%. October comes around, it starts to do 0.5%. November comes around, you're looking at 1.5%. December comes around, you're looking at about 2%. That being said, if we saw a lot of fear within the market, however, we had very strong return within the month of September. We had over 5% return within September. I think to me that is showing that October, November, and December are still going to be very strong. 5.18%. I definitely think that we will be seeing a Santa Claus rally within the next couple months. And that fits my perfect narrative when it comes to trying to find a potential point for the market to reject. Now, why am I talking about that? I don't like to call tops, I don't like to call bottoms, I like to wait for confirmation, and I will be waiting for confirmation. But this is my thoughts when it comes to the NASDAQ. Let me just explain here. The NASDAQ and the S&P, without a doubt, are overvalued. And I don't think that it takes you to be a bear to be able to say that. As a bull, I know that the market, when it's typically at its current PE ratio, the NASDAQ's PE ratio specifically, it's sitting at about 32.72, and the S&P's is currently at 29.85. Within the next 5-year return, which is annualized, you never see a positive return. That has never happened within history. Now again, history, it's not like it needs to happen. It is just the most likely probability. But I do like that probability. And as a trader, I often take the highest probability. If that's all the tools that we really have, which is just history and past movement, that's what I'm going to be looking for. So that being said, what am I expecting here? Within the next 5 years, I would be expecting a substantial pullback that'll kind of just set us back. So what would that look like in the long term? It could look something like this, where, let me just zoom out here. We continue to move up, right? You continue to move up a whole lot, and then at some point you start to reject down all the way down here. And let's say that this period is over 5 years. It's going to be less than 5 years in the chart. And then from there, you start to make another move back up again. And then 5 years later, yeah, maybe you end up here. However, if you were a smart trader, you're able to find this top, find where the bear market starts and where the bear market ends, and start to move bullishly. So that being said, I am anticipating that at some point within the future, the NASDAQ will start to drop off. The only thing that's holding the NASDAQ up right now is not political news. It's not social economic news. Unemployment is at a low, it's at a high. You have the cost of living, which is at a high too. You have job openings that are seeing fewer and fewer. You have interest rates that are 1% higher than anticipated. That being said, the economic situation within the US is not strong, but earnings are so strong that that's the only thing holding us up, specifically earnings within the Mag 7 stocks. That's really holding up the market right now. So if we do somehow lose that, then that's when you're going to see the market start to topple over. Right now, for potential take profit zones, I'm looking at 26,000 within the short term. Why? Well, sorry, specifically 25,600. That is a Fibonacci level. That is our first Fibonacci level if we're measuring from the top here to the bottom of the move there. That being said, if we do see some kind of rejection here, a lot of bearish rejection, we can expect for the market to start moving down a little bit lower. But it will be very obvious. You'll probably see like a negative 3% day, and then that's probably going to tell you to take risk off, holding cash, or start shorting the market. I don't recommend to start shorting the market until we break below this level here at about 22,900. From there, we could expect to pull back to at least 23,000, which is our previous all-time high level. But if we're able to move above this 25,600 line, then I think that at 29,500, that will probably be the last point at where I blindly just take my money out of the market. Why? I was able to make a lot of money within the market this year personally. Again, I've been able to calculate the best entry for the NASDAQ on April 23rd, which is this day specifically, and I know this for a fact because that day has changed my life as I know it. I've been able to make about 33% on the NASDAQ there. So if I am able to make a total of 57% within the NASDAQ within a year, I think that's very possible. Taking a look at our previous trend line here to see how strong the market's been moving up, we can see that, again, I mentioned that October, November, December are typically bullish months within the NASDAQ. That perfectly lines up to about the early 2026. That's where the Santa Claus rally kind of ends. And from there, once we're at about 29,000, we can start to fall off there. Now, it's not just the support level that brings us to 29,000. We typically want to talk about how the market typically pulls back 5% every 3-4 months, 10% every 2 years, and then 25% every 3 to 4 years. That being said, if we try to measure out where we can expect the potential bottom of the market to be, which could be a very strong candidate at this previous all-time high sitting at 22,000, that pretty much lines up exactly. 25% right down below there ends up starting at 29,527. Not only that, this is right below our 30,000 psychological level. This is a massive level that the NASDAQ will have to be able to get over. And I think we'll see a very strong rejection there. Not only that, you'll start to see some profit taking, getting started right before that level, because again, this is anticipated as a very strong resistance level. That being said, 500 points down below from that, I think it's a very safe take profit level where you can close your trade and from there act accordingly. But I think the market can start to fall off. I think 2026 won't be a very strong year for the market, just because of how high we are when it comes to our PE ratio within the market. That's a stat that's never really failed us before. So that is my outlook for the market. So again, from there, you can expect to short the NASDAQ if we break supports, if we break your linear support, your horizontal supports, and come down to, again, retest this previous high here. Now, if we aren't able to hold that, I'm going to give you another thinking in advance. There are still a lot of gaps within the NASDAQ, specifically sitting about 20,500 that still need to be filled. So there is a potential. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying that it's definite this time. I'm saying that there's probably a 60 to 70% chance that we will be able to come and fill those gaps within the future. So that being said, still a possibility. But I don't think that we're going to see anything catastrophic. I don't think it's going to be anything like a 80% drop like what we saw back in the dot-com bubble. However, if you're able to cash out over here and rebuy your position there, you still saved yourself about 25 to 30% within the NASDAQ. So again, it's not very nice to see that the market might fall super intensely. However, if you know that you're a long-term investor and that is just a matter of a few years for you to see your profit come back, that's really all that matters. And then again, remember that you will be averaging out your position as well as we're in a low period for the NASDAQ. But that's pretty much what I'm looking for there. I will be closing my position personally when we're at 29,500, and in between then I will be keeping my eye out for breaks of supports to potentially close my position as well. But this is my definite take profit zone. But thank you very much for tuning in. We've been crushing the market, and I don't think I need to remind you again what we did in the past few months and what we've done today. But again, if you're interested in getting some more insight and becoming a profitable trader, come take a look at that link in my description, wap.com/tmp-finance. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care, y'all.